All right, so I'm just gonna talk about kind of my usual spiel, especially since surf starts tomorrow. So just want to give some updates from last year, statistics, refresh for surf, things like that. So I'll just jump right into it. Last year in the Carolinas, there were 6 rip current fatalities, and unfortunately, they were all in our area. It was the lowest number of rip current fatalities since 2015, but again, unfortunately for us, it was all in our area, and um, yeah. On a good note, Moorhead had 0 rip current deaths for the first time since 2008. So Moorhead's pretty excited about that, along with their lifeguards. Again, we're
Wow.
not going to count it as a trend, but the fact that they had 0, especially when they mentioned that they had record visitors, given that everyone was coming out of their shell in 2021, it was impressive. So unfortunately, again, we still got work to do, and we'll see what 2022 brings. But it's a good start. Um, and so we had 3 bystander deaths. The only distant hurricane fatality we had was a rough surf in North Myrtle Beach from Larry, and we also had an inlet current death. So as far as rip current or statistics go, we continue to have record number of reports, including Oak Island last year. Definitely helps with that. But like everyone in the office is doing a great job contacting these guys. Our partners have been, on top of it the last couple of years, and so getting all these reports has been awesome for our personal forecasting, for the rip current model, climatology. I mean, it's really good to have these observations available. So I think I sent out all these statistics at the end of last year, but I just want to revisit them before the 2022 season. Our surf height statistics have definitely improved. I think because we put a lot more emphasis on surf height forecasting starting last year. So we still see this over forecasting in Oak Island Sunset. Again, part of it's probably human, uh, whatever you want to call it, but especially with Sunset Beach, they do tend to like give us like 3-4 foot surf when it's probably not that high. But overall, the biases are pretty good. Average surf height's around 2 feet, so definitely heading in the right direction. And I know Matt uses these biases to help kind of like trend the calc surf height in the right direction. Here's a look at the rip current reports from 2021. The New Hanover beaches are still recording above average, moderate, and strong rip currents. They have for the last 2 or 3 years. And then Brunswick still remains our biggest non-rip county, but again, they still see some strong rip days. So it's not like rip currents don't happen there. And then the Myrtles kind of on average with like 30% moderate to strong days. But I have on the Google site under surf verification, there's a page that includes all these graphics for both this year and then I believe like the last 8 years, so you can kind of compare them there. And then just finally, just a quick look at the actual statistics. Again, we've been improving. The false alarm rate and CSI for the Myrtles and Sunset, well, especially the Myrtles, improved compared to the last couple of years. Sunset still tends to be this kind of oddball, but we are trending in the right direction. We've gotten, Oak Island reported all but 2 days last year, which was fantastic. And so, and New Hanover beaches, we still tend to be our best beaches to forecast for, but we are improving in the south, and hopefully, sorry, or might have just been feedback. So yeah, like I said, we'll keep up the good work. Quick overview of the timeline. So of course we got our morning surf that'll be issued on the YE shift. We've got calling the lifeguards and entering OBS online with the HE. the morning update surf to be done after you call the lifeguard, so you can get a feel for like any changes. And this can be done by either the HN or the HE, depending on, update time and whatnot. And then all these afternoon duties, as usual, probably for the PR shift, unless there's radar, in which case, whoever's available. But, you got the Colon lifeguards. We're still putting the rip risk for tomorrow in chat around 4 o'clock, and then doing the evening surf. And, of course, if you have, like, hazards in effect that day, best to wait till 8 o'clock to do the evening surf so you don't have double headlines or, anything like that. So that's just a quick look. I'm gonna go briefly over like kind of review of the surf forecast process. So again, this is the GUI everyone knows and loves. Been here for quite a long time. So you put in the worst conditions expected for the day. So you put in, your winds, your swells, the current moon phase, if the low tide is like low tide during the day from the tide ILM. And then, again, the guidance or the output from this tool is just guidance. Combine it with the rip current probability model from Matt's rip regression. It's just a tool to use, not like, don't take it as gospel when doing your rip risk forecast. And of course, consider your risk when it's a weekend, holiday. If there's strong rips the previous day, you probably don't want to go low today. Things like that, again, always keep in mind. But this tool still tends to be pretty, it's got some good output to it still. And I would note, be careful when you click the load data from previous forecasts. Because I know, like, I myself, because we're doing 2-day forecasts now, and the outlook for days 3 and 4, like, I'll use this tool for days, 2, 3, and then it might hit save data and exit. So when you hit load data, it might not be for the day you're looking for. So just something to keep an eye on if you hit that. But this GUI is still a useful tool. I have it on my mind to try to like tweak it a bit, but the calculations in it are pretty complex that Steve and Brad set up. So unless it really starts putting out some weird values, I might not mess with it too much and just leave it as another guidance tool. GUI hasn't changed since last year. The longshore and water spouts is still automatic. For surf height, it's recommended to use the calc surf height as your like basis or first start, but you do have the option to use the wave height grids or assign a value. And then of course for the bottom, you put your rip risk for your days 1 and 2. And I believe the GUI remembers, for the evening surf, like it'll move up days 2 to 1, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's, again, everything that was the same last year continues. And another thing, of course, keep in mind with the rip risk is be aware of what Charleston and Moorhead are doing. If they have a high risk against us, don't go low. Either go moderate or see if they'll come down to moderate if you really don't think it's a good rip day. The only exception to the high against low might be with Cape Fear and Brunswick. If you go like high New Hanover, you might be able to go low Brunswick if it's conditions warrant. But again, be careful. The neighbors are good with chatting us as well. And at the same time, chat the neighbors if you're going to go high against them. But just something to be aware of. As I mentioned last year, we started putting more emphasis on surf height forecasting. So as always, you want to check your observations before doing a surf forecast. I mean, you want to be aware of observations before doing any forecast. And so always QC the surf heights that come from the calc surf height when you load up the surf formatter or when you're looking at the grids. Last year, I know we had a couple of days where it popped out like 1 foot surf for everywhere when it definitely wasn't a 1 foot surf day, or it might come out with some weird ranges. So you always want to QC that and not just load and go. And if you think that the values are off, or if you think it's like slightly low, slightly high, feel free to edit the surf heights within the surf text. It might be easier than spending time tweaking the grids. at least until we get like a NDFD of surf grid. So you can just feel like just manually change the values within the surf if you feel the surf heights are off. But something to keep an eye on, you know, yeah, keep paying attention to the surf heights. And then of course, if you're forecasting surf heights greater than 2.5 to 3 feet, the chances of a moderate strong rip current increases. Again, it doesn't mean that rip currents are going to happen, but the chances do increase with higher surf heights. On our Google sites, we do have a few resources like the surf height tables that Mark created. We've got logins for Surfline and Magic Seaweed to help with surf height forecasting. And if anyone needs a copy of the notes from last year's one-on-one training that Mark and I did, I'd be happy to pass them along if you don't have them. So again, there's a lot of great tips on there. And again, the Google site also has a lot of information for you, which actually on this page, if you, like I said, Google site has a lot of the step-by-steps on doing the surf, tips and tricks, like best practices, links to the rip probability, Moss guidance. It's all there on the Google site for you if you have any questions about like odd cases or a specific step. And again, there's a section for like the hazard grids. Like moderate rips, you just create the hazard grid. You don't do any products. But for high rip risk and strong longshore, you create the CFW. And I do want to remind that if you do have a strong longshore with moderate rip risk in effect, to include the moderate rips in the CFW when you're doing the strong longshore, because moderate rips are still a hazard. They're just not, I guess, hazardous enough for their own product, but they should be mentioned if we have a beach hazard statement in effect. So on another link on our Google site is I have time series for all our partner beaches, as well as Georgetown and I think like Pender or Topsail. So this is just kind of like a quick go-to, so you can look at the time series for the rip probabilities. Again, all on one page. You can take a look at it, and yeah, see what's, again, also the probabilities are available on the NWPS site, but you have to like click individual beaches or whatnot. The time series are really good first like overview of the probabilities. And of course, the probabilities are also still in GFB from last year. And the probabilities, as we've mentioned during Matt's talk, they do over forecast, especially south of Cape Fear. It's not that great. The local thresholds of 55 for moderate and 80 for high are more for New Hanover and Pender. But in particular for the rip probabilities, I love using them for the outlook section in particular because they're great for trends. So if you see the probabilities increasing, days 3 or 4 or decreasing, that's great for the outlook section. But they can be useful for the near term as well. In combination with Matt's rip regression tool, which I'm excited to see how that works out this season, and the rip GUI. So you have a few tools at your disposal. And let's see what happens. Electronic reporting. Pleased to say that Sunset Beach is now joining Oak Island in terms of submitting reports via Google form. So I do have a new Google sheet set up for 2022. It's linked on the main Surf Google site. There's a tab for Oak Island and a tab for Sunset Beach. So they're both starting tomorrow, essentially. They're going to try to do twice a day. Oak Island knows the drill. I'll, keep up with Sunset Beach to see if they have any questions for the electronic, but they seem pretty good with it. Sunset Beach also actually asked if there's a way for them to send us pictures because they knew that would help us, but unfortunately it seems pretty complicated to do that via Google form. But again, any beach that can join for electronic is great. Riceville Beach did admit that if they went electronic, we'd probably never hear from them. So they said it's best if we continue with the radio. And one thing I want to note, when it comes to the VLab entries, when entering beach reports into VLab page, please set the time for the observation to the report time. This happened a lot last year, especially with Oak Island, because Oak Island tends to report the morning reports around like 7:30, but it usually gets put into VLab like around 10:30 or the time in VLab says observation of 10:30 like the rest of them. These reports are used to verify and improve the rip current model. So if the observation times are wrong, it's going to mess up what MDL is doing with the model. So we want to try to get these observation times at least as close as possible to the actual report times, so that MDL has accurate information to help improve our model. So just something I wanted to note that popped up last year. Again, it's especially true for the electronic beaches that report on their own time, not when everyone else is doing it. So since surf starts tomorrow, just wanted to give a heads up that Wrightsville, of course, they have a couple people on the beach already, so they're available to call. Curie Beach said that they'll be available for afternoon calls starting tomorrow. They might not be available every day, but he seemed pretty confident that most days they should be there in the afternoon. And Sunset and Oak Island will start on their electronic reporting. I haven't heard back from the Myrtles yet. I know that they usually start around now, so I say we can give them a try tomorrow, see if they answer. Carolina Beach doesn't start till late May, so I'm not worried about them. But I also put these dates on. I printed out a new, clipboard and all that in Ops, so these dates should be listed on there with the numbers. So, and I actually don't know where the lime green clipboard went in Ops, so it's kind of using one of the phone log clips, but it should all be there ready for you guys tomorrow. And I just want to point this out. I think this was on like a recent quiz or something, or office drill, but we have on the Rip Current program Google site, there's a list of all our ocean rescue contacts. These are good for, say you have a report of a drowning or you need more information that you can't get from the lifeguards. These are a list of all like kind of the head guys in our area. I do want to point out Oak Island, the previous chief Tony left, so the new one is Pete. And Donnie left North Myrtle Beach, the beach patrol sector. So again, I update this, when I can, or pretty much update it as needed. And I do want to note that I put the beach patrol cell phone number in this contacts for Sunset Beach, because since they went electronically, I removed them from the phone list in Ops. But there may be times we want to reach out to them, like we haven't heard from them in a couple of days, or if we're really curious about what's going on down there, their cell phone number is in here. This is the number that gets given to whoever's patrolling the beach that day. So I only got a few more notes left. Real quick, the Surf Matrix experiment still goes on. This should still be automatic starting tomorrow whenever you issue Surf. So nothing for you to do on your end, but excited to keep this going this year. It's worthwhile to check this page every now and then. I know there's a few hiccups last year with the page. Usually when like the surf's done at a different time or in a different way, but overall it's hands off automatic. But again, good resource. Hopefully, I'll put like a headline and post on social media probably closer to May, when people are going to be going to the beach more often. But yeah, like I said, just wanted to bring it up that we're still going on, and I think Matt's going to help see if we can expand this to possibly Wakefield. I think maybe another office is interested too, so see if we can grow this a bit. Just want to mention we picked this up a lot last year, which is awesome. So beach hazard briefings are great, especially when we have distant hurricanes. So if we got distant tropical cyclone or hurricane that's creating rough surf or high rip current risk, beach hazard briefings are great to send to partners. They get widespread use, very much appreciated, and it's great. Steve's also used the MASS program a couple of times last year for translating these briefings into Spanish, which I know UNCW really appreciates. So just want to mention that, keep this going during high impact events. If it's Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, definitely include, mention of the high risk in the, routine briefings. But on the off days, we do have one pagers available. And of course, feel free to message our inland neighbors or tag them social media or something, because they have shared our information in the past during big events, especially if it lands on a weekend or popular travel day. It'd be great if they can, share our message. So again, just want to say, keep it up with the briefings, because we did put out quite a few last year, which is great. Not going to go too much into this. You've probably seen this a million times, but this was updated for the end of last year, and I'll try to keep this map updated when I can, but this is also linked on the Google site. I use this map pretty much in all my presentations, all the outreach, the Rip Current IWT, all that has this map. And then this is a national surf zone fatality dashboard that John Kuhn's working on at headquarters. If you search NWS surf fatalities, it used to bring up a table and a map of surf fatalities, but now it'll direct you to this GIS dashboard that's really nice, where you can sort by state, gender, hazard. You can zoom in. He's got this from 2010 to now, but it's a really great resource for national fatalities. I know I have one for Carolina rip currents, but just wanted to point this out there for anyone that's interested in messing around with it. And I'm not going. This is a few trainings available, CLC course for the probability model, and I want to reiterate that a new rip current forecasting comic course came out last year that I know Steve and Mark were involved in. That it's really good information if anyone wants a refresher. And I'll just leave my summary slide up. Again, we start surf tomorrow, and I will say the Rip Current IWT was successful. We'll probably have recordings for anyone interested at the end of this week or next week. And I will say that Dr. Brander, who's Dr. Rip from Australia, he gave an awesome presentation yesterday on basics of rip currents, messaging, things like that. So when I get the recording, I highly recommend at least watching his 15, 20-minute talk. It was really good for just kind of a rip current talk. But I'm glad we were able to get him in the IWT. So I will leave off with that.
All right, thanks, Victoria. Anybody have any questions for Vicki?
Vicki, does Duke Brown cover both of the Myrtles?
Yeah, he covers all of Horry County. So when he calls in to report, he'll usually say where he's from or where he's at. Usually, I tend to find he's usually Garden City, south of Myrtle, but he tends to roam everywhere.
Oh, okay, good to know. Thanks, Vic.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot, Vicki. I also wanted to mention too, just so everyone's aware of the formatters like the CFW, in mentioning that moderate rip, if we have a beach hazard statement in effect, there's call to actions built in at the top. So you could select, for your wet bullet, you could put moderate risk of rip currents also in effect. And there's also options to include things like dune erosion, dune overwash, with statements that a few of us here had worked up, that you could utilize too to further add detail to these products as well, if you ever want to just select them from the call to action selection there at the top.
That's great, Matt. And that actually reminded me about something I didn't note here that I'll make sure is on the Google page when it comes to, I know we set it up defaulted that in the HWO, when we have beach hazard statement in effect, it'll say beach hazard statement for strong longshore. Yeah. So in the rare case we issue a beach hazard for something else like jellyfish, that has to be edited. So I'll make sure the Google page makes note of that. Again, it's rare, but it does happen.
All right, thanks again, Victoria. Let's keep